Being a fan of the Umbrella Academy is like being a fan of Hot Pockets. Like, you're gonna eat it, you're gonna like it, but you're gonna get fucking burned. It's like being a fan of, whatever sports team loses all the time. I'm sorry, I don't know sports. I while I ultimately liked where season 4 ended, where the series ended for these characters as a whole, there was a lot of character choices in season 4, like last season, that were just questionable at best, and I feel like a lot of characters were done really dirty. And specifically, I really need to talk about Lila. There's a lot that I could say about all of these precious babies, but Lila, I feel like, got such a bad shake this season. And this is the part that I tell you, if you haven't seen season 4, there are going to be spoilers, so like skedaddle if you don't want to hear them. I'm going to be honest with a hot take right off the top and say I don't hate the love interest. I don't think it's that weird. I think Aidan Gallagher is a really talented actor who for 4 seasons now has really sold playing a character that is much older than he is. And I also think that, like, he convincingly sold falling in love with a mannequin. I don't think it's all that weird that they could, have a romance. But genuinely, I think they actually could have pulled off a really interesting romance if they'd taken the time to actually develop it between these two characters. Now, am I saying that would have been my ideal scenario for 5? No. But I do think that this fits with how dysfunctional and weird this family's relationship is with each other. I think it could have worked if it were done right. It just wasn't. I loved Lila so much when she was first introduced, and I love Lila and Diego's romance specifically because I think it really speaks to this experience of having a really dysfunctional relationship with your parents, having a really fucked up childhood, and then the first time you fall in love with someone, how all encompassing it is, how it feels like a drug. It feels so good. It feels like something you never want to give up because it feels like something you've never gotten before. But then I also have seen that relationship fall apart and realize that love isn't enough, and realize that you're growing in ways that your partner can't grow with you, and how horrible that is. And I feel like that experience is something that is really significant for a lot of people with childhoods like that. And it was played mostly for laughs in this season. And I don't think that it's like offensive. I think it's just really inadequate. But that's the thing. Diego's side of things also felt like it was just completely undercut. Like, the entire emphasis was on how silly and goofy he was, and he had a dad bod and he's clueless. And like, meanwhile, Lila is this conniving betrayer. And I feel like adult relationships are much more complicated than that. And I feel like, he never really got to express his anger, but we never really got to see his faults. We never really got to see why Lila was pushed to her limit. And most divorces are initiated by women because men ignore the problems in their relationship. And I feel like that was clear that was what Diego was doing, but it felt like it was being portrayed like Lila was the bad guy here and that Lila was like transgressing. And I don't think that's what's happening. And I don't know. It just felt like it was portrayed really simplistically and really fucking fast. Again, I get the tone of the show. I love the tone of the show, but I just feel like if you're gonna tackle these like really significant issues, like, I don't want it to be undercut every single time. I feel the same way about 5. I feel like 5 is a character that has been through so much, and I would have loved to seen an interesting character story of how complicated his feelings would be if something like this genuinely happened because of his desperation for his family. I don't know. I love this show. This season was a little bit of a mess. Ultimately, like I said, I do like the way their story ended. I feel like it maybe would have worked better if this ending had just been fit into the previous season, because the build up in the previous season made more sense. And I feel like a lot of the character choices that they made this season were either very minimal in terms of developing the characters, or just shoved a bunch of stuff in at the last minute that didn't really add anything to the story. And I say all this still saying that I still love this show. I still love these characters. I will probably rewatch the whole series again at some point because I loved it. I really did. But these choices, man.